is the Full and Bloom interview with guitarist Mick Sweda inside the album Bulletboys, self-titled. More info at fullandbloom.com. Did you guys have that deal in place with Warner Brothers already, or did you guys form the band and then go play a bunch of gigs?
Well, no, we formed the band and then we just woodshedded. We didn't really play a lot of shows. I think before we started recording that record, I think we'd done maybe 8 shows total over the year and a half it took us to sort of get everything together. In fact, the way that deal came about, I saw somebody from our King Cobra merchandising company on the Strip one night. And we had a little short conversation, and he said, "Hey, I'm managing now. If you guys ever, get together or get something together, let me know." And so I availed myself of that once we got the band to a point where I thought we were pretty good. And he came down and heard us, and that struck up a relationship that lasted the entirety of my tenure with Bulletboys.
So basically the deal's just already in place, right? I mean, you don't really
Well, that was a management situation. He was a real go-getter. He ended up, helping us to, we did a showcase for Columbia, and they passed on us, but they also paid for a demo that we did with Garth Richardson, and that was the demo that once the Columbia deal expired, or once that agreement expired, we were able to use that demo, and that's what they ended up hearing at Warner Brothers.
Oh, nice. Which songs were on that demo?
I think I actually posted those online. They're available. I don't know how easy they are to find. I think it's Hard as a Rock, Thrill That Kills. Oh, man, you're stumping me.
Smooth Up In You was on there?
Smooth Up In You, and there's another tune. I can't think of what was on our demos, our Bulletboys demos. Smooth Up, Hard as a Rock, Thrill That Kills, and Crank Me Up.
The thought to come into doing For the Love of Money, who brings that up to do that song?
Well, I demoed that thinking that we would do that in King Cobra, because I knew Carmine was a fan of R&B, and I knew Mark, that was one of his strong suits. He was very agile vocally and could pull off those turns, and was a fan of it. So I remember going to Tower Records and buying the single and coming back and putting down my version of it, which, that initial version that I did was very similar to, the way the OJs did it. It was just a little tougher, obviously with guitars. But I kind of kept the same feel, where there isn't really a backbeat. It's just more like, doom, doom. So that I wanted to kind of keep. Well, Mark didn't want to do it. Carmine wasn't into it. I split the band, and it was all forgotten. He never even did a vocal at my house on the demo. So I just got, a vocal-free track. Well, anyway, as we're moving forward, and I'm in the studio, and Ted is looking for more songs, he said, "Nick, bring in any other songs you have." So I'm playing this tape for him, and he's listening to these other tracks, and that track, that no vocal track for the Love of Money comes up, and I run over to the cassette player because I don't want him to hear it. It's like I don't want to do any covers, and I know if at that point in the band's life, if they find out that I'm playing Ted, something that I've done as a cover, even as a cover, there's going to be a problem, and I'm going to have to deal with it. So I'm trying to fast forward it, and he goes, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! What is that?" I said, "Well, it's this thing I did a long time ago, a cover for The Love of Money." He goes, "Hold on, let me hear that." And the rest is history. We ended up tracking it.
Do you remember anything about the day you signed with Warner Brothers? Any kind of standout memory?
I remember a manager bringing out, the advance check and looking at that and taking pictures with it and everything, because you have to understand, when we started this band, we didn't have jobs. Nobody had any money coming in. In fact, I was driving, picking up Lonnie in my old 65 Mustang and maxing out a gas card that I had no idea how I was going to pay off. And, but that's, we just rehearsed every day, and many, many hours. I mean, we were doing like 6, 8, sometimes 10-hour days just rehearsing and writing songs. And, to go back to your earlier point, yeah, we didn't play a lot of gigs because we were always working on our craft and trying to make sure that we had the strongest songs possible. And, everybody in the band had ideas and was always bringing things up. So we had plenty of work to do all the time. But, yeah, we were broke. In fact, at one point we ended up making a deal with Mark's parents where, they got a point on the record for loaning us, I think it was $7,000. Well, that point on that record probably ended up being over 100,000. Yeah, there's some pretty lousy planning
wow.
going on around those days. But, to get back to what I was talking about, to see that check from Warner Brothers and to realize that we were going to be able to eat the next day was pretty astounding.
Yeah. How much was the advance?
It was 6 figures.
And so you guys just split that up and equally, or did you buy gear with that, or what'd you do?
It definitely went back into expenses. I mean, we had to find a way to keep a little bit of the future in mind. So, essentially when you're in a band like ours, it's not like you just get huge sums of money. I think at that point I got enough to buy like a little Nissan pickup truck. Yeah, I mean, you have to sock a lot of that money away just to keep things going. So we all got pretty meager salaries at that point. And, it wasn't necessarily, go out and buy your mom a house moment.
Oh, of course. Yeah. But at least everybody gets to quit their job and focus on the path ahead, right?
Well, like I said, we didn't have jobs. So we were desperate at that point because, like I said, I took that money and paid off my gas card. Again, you see the check and you're having a great time and it's all fun and games. But then, at the end of the day, you're paying off the debt that it took to get to that point. At least I was.
Where did you guys record the Bulletboys self-titled album?
That was at a studio called 1-on-1 in North Hollywood.
And how long does that record take to record?
Well, I think it took about 2 months to do. I know Ted was very particular with the drum track. So, even though Jimmy played great on them, Ted was often absent from the studio and he had, as a superstar producer, he had other priorities. So if he didn't feel like coming in for a week, he certainly didn't have to. So, that was part of the problem with making that record too. It ended up being like way more expensive than it needed to be and kind of put us behind the 8 ball before we even started.
Who engineered that record?
A guy named Jeff Hendrickson, who was awesome and was there every single day for us.
And so he would just kind of leave the engineer in there and then disappear sometimes for a week?
Well, the problem is that the engineer couldn't do anything without Ted there. There were weeks where Ted didn't show up at all.
So then what are you guys doing?
Nothing. Burning money.
But you're in the studio, sitting in the studio?
Cash on fire. Yeah, we're sitting in a $2,000 a day studio.
Holy shit.
With no producer and no work to do. Or plenty of work to do, but no way to do it, because the engineer is he's not going to record anything without Ted there. I mean, Ted's the producer. He's supposed to be there. And unfortunately wasn't.
Oh, my God.
Long periods of time. So
that's amazing. So I'm assuming you guys just were paying $2,000 a day to rehearse? Well,
yeah. I mean, or sit in the lounge and, order food.
Holy crap.
It was painful for me because I'm, like I said earlier, I've got a very strong blue collar work ethic. And, and when we're not paying for studio time, I want to be working. If I'm with this band and hanging out with these guys, I want to be getting something done. So unfortunately, like I said, we could have done a lot better on this record had we, or at least profited from it, somewhat, if it actually had been done in time.
Do you remember what the initial budget was for that record?
Ted Templeman, so it's unlimited.
By the end of it, how much does that run you guys?
Oh, I don't know. But, I think at that point, before the record even came out, I think in order for us to recoup, we would have had to sell, I don't know, 2.5, 3 million copies. And that's to say nothing of the video expenses, Videos were very pricey back then.
I was trying to remember. I couldn't find the Hard as a Rock video, but I could have sworn you guys did a video to that.
No, we never did.
Okay.
That was never released as a single.
Wow. It's amazing because I just remember that song so well, but maybe
I got a lot of airplay here in L.A.
Yeah, that's probably why, is that I just remember that song everywhere. But what's something that you learned from Ted Templeman?
Well, what I learned is, coming from... I hate this word, but someone who is very meticulous about recording and very, I hate this word, but, I always try to be as much of a perfectionist as I could be. What I learned from Ted is that sometimes, if not all the time, mistakes can be beautiful, and things that you weren't necessarily intending to do might very well be the most charming part of a track, So the way the sessions went is basically, we'd be in there working over the arrangements, because he had a lot to do with some of the arrangements that we did in terms of tweaking them. Others, he didn't tweak at all, but, he'd be throwing new things at Jimmy, new things at me. And, you might get a take that you weren't necessarily comfortable with. And that ultimately might, in many cases, it ended up on the record. But when you're listening to it, you're thinking, wait a minute, I wasn't thinking of it that way. To me, that's a mistake that needs to be fixed. But in retrospect, as you listen to the record and as it grows on you, and you realize that, spontaneity is really a beautiful component of music and possibly the most important part of music, you start to make friends with it. You start to realize, like, yeah, that's cool. And that's kind of what Ted taught me, that sometimes, the thing that you weren't really expecting to do is the part that makes the track brilliant.
Is there a song that you actually remember where one of those beautiful mistakes happened in?
Well, I know that I had never worked out a rhythm part for F-sharp 9 because I'd always just played solo, But when we tracked it, I just tried to throw down whatever I thought would be an interesting rhythm part. So I think what's on the record is maybe one of the first 1 or 2 times I ever played that part. Virtually all of my solos, I didn't really work them out. I'm not that kind of cat. I don't like doing that. I like to, not really be sure of where I'm going next. So most of my solos are, whatever take I was doing, not necessarily first takes, but I kind of played something different every time. So, whatever was in my mind at the time is pretty much what's on there. And, again, I'm not always happy with that because I'm expecting, to be able to, take it to the point where I'm comfortable with it. But that wasn't necessarily always the case.
I could have sworn I remembered that album having gone platinum, but all I could find out there is that it went gold. Did it not go platinum?
We think it has by now. The problem with that record is that SoundScan, which is the vehicle that people use to determine sales, SoundScan started after that record came out. So a great number, there's no way to know how many records were sold prior to SoundScan starting. So SoundScan didn't necessarily pick up a certain percentage of those sales. The point being that the last official count I heard was 800,000 units. And that was sometime back in the 90s. So word is out that record has since gone platinum. And we're in the process of trying to figure out how to determine that. And who knows, maybe even get a platinum record for that up on the wall.
The amount that you guys got played on the radio and MTV, man, you would have thought there's just no way that wouldn't have gone platinum. And you guys got a ton of airplay, at least in Texas. Maybe it was state by state or something, but in Texas, everywhere you went, they were playing one of those 3 songs.
Yeah, we had a lot of hot spots. I remember driving up to, I think, Wisconsin. We had a couple of big shows with Cheap Trick in arenas, pretty big barns. And then we had a couple of headlining shows in clubs. So we go up and we do the shows with Cheap Trick. And they come off well, and it was really fun. Obviously, I mean, when I was a kid, I used to dream of going to Chicago to see Cheap Trick in a club because they were like my band, right? Like nobody ever heard of them where I grew up, but I loved everything they did, and I would fantasize about seeing Cheap Trick, right? So I'm a big fan. So we're opening the shows, and then we go to do the headlining gig at a club, and we're in this one place, and it was like a tri-level club, and I'm way upstairs in like some dressing room, and I'm just practicing, right, and getting ready for the show. And showtime comes around, and I haven't really been out. I'm just sitting there playing, and our guys come up and like, okay, it's ready. We're ready to go. Let's hit it, boys. And I remember coming out of the dressing room and walking down these stairs and looking over the club, and it was fucking packed. And we have not experienced that. You know, we're used to playing to 30, 40 people, or we're opening for Ian Hunter. Maybe there's 60. So I'm looking at this club, and I remember stopping and turning around and going, do they think somebody else is here? Is there something's wrong, man? Because this place is freaking packed right now. And, of course, that was when the video had come out, and, you know, the influence of MTV.
The video for Smooth Up Indian?
Career, yeah, at that point was very evident.
And then I'm assuming even with For the Love of Money, I mean, once that came out, that was the one that really pushed the record, right?
Yeah, I don't think it had quite the impact that we were hoping for, but it certainly helped propel the record, you know, in towards the end of that year. I mean, like I said earlier, we had toured, not necessarily consecutively, obviously, but, you know, we were on the road for 382, I guess what we were saying is we went around the world in 386 days.
Are there any moments that stand out from those recording sessions?
When we were working, there were a lot of fun. I mean, I love playing with Lonnie. I love playing with Jimmy. And we have a real chemistry that none of us can seem to find in any other situation. So, you know, the actual recording sessions were really fun. You know, nerve-wracking at times and not necessarily always comfortable, but we enjoyed hanging out with each other, and Ted was really fun to work with. I remember one time that we were, he had something he wanted to do where he brought in a bunch of people from the label, and for whatever reason, I think he wanted to play a track that we had already recorded, but he wanted us to, like, pretend we were playing it or something. I'm not sure what he had going on. He's just kind of a trippy cat. So anyway, we're playing this track, and it was cranking me up, as a matter of fact. And I play this kind of this funky C diminished 2 chord, and I blew it, right? Like I clammed all over it, and I kind of embarrassed Ted because I think he was trying to do something else with it. But it was funny. After the take, he put on the talk back and said, "Mick, are you okay out there? You didn't hurt yourself, did you?" And I thought that was kind of funny. Smart ass.
How'd you guys record your guitars?
They rented this amp that I guess Ted was familiar with. It was an old Marshall 100 watt, which I happen to have here in my studio. And we dialed in what was to me a very clean setting, something that I wasn't really familiar with because my tone was sort of more saturated and creamier and a little darker and nastier, but everybody seemed to like this tone that I was getting, right? And it felt like I was just playing through a freaking straight into a Fender Deluxe, on 2. And so recording that record for me was really uncomfortable because I wasn't getting the response from the amp that I was used to, and it just seemed like a tough tone for me to have to play with. And so, that first record to me, when I think back on it and the recording of it, it was like a struggle because I wasn't, even though the tone was great and I love it and everything, it wasn't what I was familiar with. So I was kind of distracted at certain points during that session.
Did he just throw a 57 on it, or did he do anything different?
I'm not sure. They had 87 there, so I think he might have even had an 87 on it. But there's nothing unusual about the miking. It was just that tone, and I should have, like I did with the second record, like I finally went back to the amp and I just freaking turned up the gain for the second record, and I was way more comfortable with that. And I should have done it on the first record too. It would have been a little ballsier, but that's what it is, and I guess it sounds good. Between you and me and whoever else is listening, I would totally remix that record because I can't stand the mix in it, but oh well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's not what I would have done. And frankly, if you go back and listen to the demos that I was telling you about earlier, and you'll get a much clearer representation of how I envisioned our record sounding. Obviously, there's some, things I wouldn't necessarily have carried over into a record from those demos, but it will be very obvious to you once you listen to those demos and you listen to our record how different Ted's approach was, and in terms of the mix, in terms of the guitar tones, in terms of, whatever overdubs there were. It's just, almost subdued and tame by my standards.
You guys toured with Bon Jovi on that album?
I wouldn't say we toured. As far as I know, I only really remember one date. We did a big stadium in Ohio with them. And I think Cher was going out with the guitar player in that band. She somehow wandered into our dressing room, and I think Jimmy kind of got in her face and said, "What are you doing?" And kind of pissed her off. That's the only story I remember from that.
Who did you tour with on that album?
Well, the first band we went out with was probably one of my favorites. We went out, and believe me, and I'm getting off track here, but we were not supposed to go on the road at all for months. And I'm talking 6 or 9 months. They wanted the record to come out. They wanted to see what it was going to do. And they wanted us to just sit in town and wait to see how the record was going to respond. And as our manager well knew, that was a horrifying situation because we never would have survived. We never would have stayed together. And so literally our manager went to Warner Brothers and said, "You guys, this is a bad idea. You can't just have these guys sitting around town. They'll never make it. The record will come out and there won't be a band. We need to get them on the road. We need to get them doing something, please." And he virtually begged them to let us go out. And thankfully we got some dates with Ian Hunter and Mick Ronson. And if you know anything about me, you'll know that both of those guys were big heroes of mine when I was a kid. So we ended up going out and doing a bunch of dates with them. And as you can imagine, at that point, their demographic is 30, 40-somethings, right?
Yeah.
And we're going out and kicking ass on these poor people who didn't know what the hell we were even doing on that bill. But it was fun, I mean, they were doing okay. I mean, they weren't packing places, and they were just playing little clubs. But that was a great experience. I remember going up and saying hi to Mick Ronson, and he's got his eyeliner on, and his frilly clothes and everything, and he's looking for coke, and it's like, oh man, this is a dream. But after that, like I said, we did a couple of Cheap Trick dates. We then did some headlining stuff, and then I think the big thing for us was hooking up with Cinderella and Winger, and we did like 6 months of arenas with them, and obviously the Bon Jovi date. We did an Ozzy date. I think a couple of Ozzy dates. I think we did a show with Poison. I know we did a show with Living Color. Probably too many bands to name, but
yeah. Anything stand out from that Cinderella Winger tour?
Yeah, a lot of it stands out, including the opening show when Lonnie and I were in jail for breaking up a hotel room.
I didn't know they actually arrested. I thought they just threw a bill on you, so you guys got arrested, huh?
Yeah, we got called in. It was kind of a bad idea. They put us into Louisville, Kentucky a couple of days early, and Lonnie and I went out, and I think tequila is to blame for that, because we got back to the room, and I just remember like trying to pick the TV off the dresser, and you know how they're attached with this metal bracket?
Yeah.
That metal bracket didn't really offer any resistance, so that TV came off, and everything just went to hell from there. I just remember the next morning, I'm laying in bed, and all of a sudden this blinding light is like penetrating my eyelids, and I wake up in this haze to see these cops literally with their shoulders trying to shove the door in because there's so much debris behind it. They can't even just open the door. They're pushing it in, shoving all this crap aside. And the next thing I know, we're in jail, and some guys are starting to whistle at us. And Lonnie goes, "Fuck you, man! I'm fucking crazy! I'm fucking crazy! Come on, you fuckers!" And I'm like, oh my God. It almost seems like he knows how to be here.
And so you guys were in jail on that first night that you're supposed to play the gig?
Yeah, we woke up in jail, and they got us out in time to get to the arena, have dinner, and play our show.
I gotcha. And Cinderella was the headliner, right?
Yeah, Winger went on after that, and then Cinderella went on. And it was a great tour. I mean, those guys are all good friends of ours at this point now. And, that's something that, in fact, the guys in Cinderella, I have a double platinum to their, it's a double platinum framework on my wall right now because they were so appreciative of us being out there. They were obviously very proud of that long, cold winter.
What a bizarre record deal that you guys got where you're sitting in the studio spending $2,000 a day and Templeman's gone for weeks at a time or a week or whatever. And then to have you sit, I don't think I've ever heard that before where they have a band sit after the album comes out.
Yeah. It's not uncommon. In fact, I was just hearing somebody talk about it the other day where their record, was out and they were just sitting around waiting for something to happen on it. I don't think it's very uncommon. I don't understand the logic really. I mean, I would think that...
well, I guess probably not to put any more money into it, I would think, but yeah,
that's it. And that's exactly what I was going to say. They don't have to shell out any tour support in advance of the record, coming out. I mean, who's to say that record comes out and just flops? And they've been putting out tour support for 6 months. That's a lot of money. To their credit, Warner Brothers was amazing for us. I mean, granted, they're spending our money, every cent of it, but they were very, very cooperative in how they dealt with us. They gave us tour support. They gave us videos. They gave us, all the promotional support we could handle. So, in reality, things should have worked out much better than they did.
Do you have like 3 fond memories of your time in Bulletboys?
Well, it's all shows, I mean, it's just playing in those arenas and looking up in the rafters and seeing the seats, filled for an opening act. I mean, there were nights when we went on at 7:00, and those arenas had a lot of people in them. They were basically packed every night, even for us. And that's not the norm, you know. I mean, you've certainly heard Van Halen talk about T-shirt bands where they just hire some unknown band so that, you know, when they come on, everybody rushes off to buy a T-shirt of Van Halen. So, and that was impressive to me because, you know, we weren't just a T-shirt band. We were there and people were coming out to see us. And I was always proud of that. And let's see. I remember one night we were in, I think we were playing with Great White or something. And this was on maybe our second record. And Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick was there again, one of my heroes, you know. And so we all got together and we thought we'd do this cool thing, man. Let's open with Hello There, a cool Cheap Trick song, you know, right at the beginning. We'll just hit them and it'll be great, you know. Everyone will love it. So we go out there and we play the song, and we all come off stage. And sure enough, Rick comes into the dressing room, and we're all high-fiving, like, oh, my God, love you, Rick. You're the best. And Tareen, you know, I can just see him doing it now. He, like, flicks back his hair, gets up in Rick's face, and he's all serious, right? Like, so, Rick, what'd you think of it, man? We played your song. What'd you think? Rick, just deadpan as ever. He goes, yeah, I always knew that song sucked, and you guys proved it. And Tareen just, of course, his face just glosses over. And he doesn't know how to respond, and I'm just laughing hysterically. It was great.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, he's the best.
How did Mark's voice hold up on tour?
Well, it held up, but you know, you could definitely see that he wasn't taking care of it. And you know, by the time we got into the studio to do our second record, the producer himself said, you know, I don't have the racehorse I had on the first album, and he didn't want to make our second record. You know, he didn't feel like his voice was strong enough to do it, and if you listen to it, you can definitely hear the difference.
I can still remember when I was young, and I think it was somewhere around there, and he's out there smoking weed at the basement, and I grew up in Dallas. To me, as far as singing and pot, I know some people, Paul McCartney said it opened up his voice, but always fucked my voice, and I would think that that would have some kind of effect on it.
It definitely did. He smoked cigarettes at the same time.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, he did not take care of his voice, and it was very evident as, you know, as the shows and the tours and the dates piled on. You know, it was very evident that he was struggling, and certainly, as you would expect, you know, by the time we got off the road, 386 days, he ended up having nodes on his vocal cords, and he had to have them surgically removed. So that pretty much sucked up, you know, any momentum we had from the first record.
How long do you take off after that? That's like a long time to recover, isn't it?
Yeah, like 9 months, yeah.
Wow. And so from there, after he recovers, is he taking care of his voice, or does he go right back to smoking cigarettes and all that?
Yeah, I don't think it had any, I don't think that had any positive effect on him at all.
Oh, okay.
I mean, he was pretty much right back to, you know, where he is today. You know, I think he's still doing all that.
Yeah. And what was he like in the studio on that first album?
I can't really even say, because we just kind of as a band went in and did our tracks, and then Ted worked with him privately on the vocals. I gotcha. So we you know,
didn't really participate in that.
Why. I mean, you can't really have four different people barking at you as you're trying to, you know, produce important vocals. But as far as I know, he was as professional as he could be, you know.
How did Mark retain ownership of the Bulletboys name?
Well, by the time 1993 came around and our third record was out and we were promoting it and trying to get some legs under it, we did a show at the Palace, and we were sound checking. And I remember that he was late, obviously, as usual, and we're standing around. And when he finally gets there, he starts going off and berating like all the other successful bands, like Warrant, Skid Row, and I'm looking out and I'm seeing bands in the audience that are just waiting to sound check. And meanwhile, this he's like proselytizing and going off on and
into the mic.
You know, it was. Oh yeah, that was his sound check, right? Just going off on all these other bands and just bitching basically. And I remember thinking, okay, that's it. That's it for me. I gathered everybody upstairs. I said, this is it. I'm done. I'll see this record through. I'll promote it. Hopefully it'll do well. But I'm not making any more records with this guy. That was the straw that broke this camel's back. And so, you know, we went out and did dates, and he ended up making a call to Warner Brothers and got the red button pushed on our record. And so it was over in a heartbeat. Everything just sort of fell apart. And
what do you mean?
You know,
he calls Warner Brothers and gets them to kill the record?
Yeah. He made a call, and he thought he had a friend there. And obviously the friend's going to do what's best for the record company. So, you know, the single got killed.
But what good is that? What good is that? I don't even understand the thinking. What good is that going to do? He just wanted to get everybody out of the band, or what?
Welcome to my world, brother. Welcome to basically, you know, from day one of that band till that day, that stuff went on almost endlessly. It was, and the way I say it is like it was just basically damage control from day one for everybody. You know, something was always going on that we had to, you know, try to fix or mend fences, or, I mean, and that was just like normal. But try to explain it, no, you won't even begin. But anyway, that was it. And so basically I just wanted to distance myself as much as I could. And we sat down in a meeting. I said, look, I just want my gear, just want my amps and guitars. You take the name, just continue on however you want to do it. I just want to get away. And Jimmy pretty much joined me in that.